We're good. A friend of mine has come and gotten my kids so they could get out of this a little bit today and not see it. They start school next week, so my oldest is really thinking about that right now and is really sad.
That's the thing for kids and parents who are going back to school this week or next week.
Yeah.
This is psychologically just hard to process.
It's awful. It's supposed to be a week of, it's so happy that the routines are back in place, or if you're a kindergartner or preschool, it's such that next step in life to start school, and for this to be taken away and to have their first week happen like this is just unreal.
We saw the police with canines going through the yards here. Did they tell you they were looking for something specific?
I asked them, is everything safe? And they just said it's an added precaution, and that made me feel safe, that they were doing everything that they could to walk through. I saw their dogs and some of the officers jump over fences, and they're incredible, and I'm really grateful for their work here.
Just one of the folks who live nearby that we've had a chance to chat with, our Corin Hoggard, one of our reporters. His brother happens to live in that neighborhood, and when Corin arrived at the scene around 9 o'clock this morning, he was able to talk to some folks, and then Rob Olson, or Saquon, also has been out there. And there's a lot that doesn't make, air. There's a lot that you won't see, but reporters really talking to a lot of people who are struggling right now, and people who are just trying to navigate all of this in their minds and understand how this could happen in this just seemingly just very quiet residential neighborhood with a small Catholic school and church.
Yeah, we know that there were several rounds fired, and Corin kind of mentioned that when talking to some of the neighbors. They said it sounded like some sort of construction work. They just didn't believe that it was what it was, and so we're starting to get, a sense of some of the reactions, that raw reaction from some of the people in this particular area. We are also continuing to get, statements and just the emotion from do we want to get to this?
Okay, let's take this. So this is Representative Ilhan Omar speaking live right now.
Is just unspeakable horror. So my heart breaks for the families and the victims of this tragic morning here in Minneapolis at Annunciation Catholic Church. We don't know much. We know that the assailant is dead, and we are going to learn more about motives and what more can be done to make sure that we avoid tragedies like this. But at this moment, I just want to hold the space for prayer for the families and the victims of this tragic event.
Have you had a chance to speak with school leadership yet?
I have not. We know that that's what I attempted to do. They are in the middle of getting a statement out, trying to make sure that they're able to communicate the tragedy that has taken place, what that means for their close-knit, deeply faithful community. But I did have an opportunity to chat with the mayor and the commissioner of public safety, and they are continuing to come to assist. And we know that we are going to get to the bottom of what has taken place as the investigation unfolds. It's been
Representative Ilhan Omar speaking in Minnesota. That is a live coverage from Fox 9 KMSP that you've been watching here on Fox Local as we continue to track developments in this deadly shooting at a Catholic school and church in Minneapolis earlier today. This is Florida Live. I am Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. I want to let you know some of what we do have coming up in the show for you today. We are continuing to track the latest developments and details coming out of Minnesota with this deadly shooting. We'll have more on that in just a minute. Coming up in our Tampa connection, we're going to talk about this Florida FBI raid that appears to be connected to a nationwide case. Nancy Gay going to have the details on that in just a few minutes. Also at 2:30, Senator Ashley Moody is in Polk County holding a news conference about Florida's citrus industry. So we will get you there coming up in just a little bit as well. But we do begin today with the latest in this shooting out of Minnesota, where 2 children were killed, 17 people injured in the shooting at a Catholic school, Annunciation Catholic School. It's a K-8 school in Minneapolis, and this shooting happened, according to police, during a mass this morning that was celebrating the first week of school. This was the 3rd day. It started on Monday. We learned from police that two kids were killed where they sat in their church pews, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. 14 of the 17 people injured, according to police, are children, and they range in ages from 9 to 16 years old. According to the hospital, 7 people were in critical condition when they arrived. 4 were in surgery, and 1 has been discharged. A statement from the hospital says they are currently taking care of 7 children. 1 patient has been discharged, saying thoughts are with all the victims, their families, and loved ones in our communities impacted by yet another senseless act of violence. And here's what we know about the shooter at this hour. He's been identified by Fox 9 reporting as Robin Westman, a man in his early 20s, who, according to police, shot through the windows of that church with a rifle, shotgun, and a pistol before shooting and killing himself. Police are still trying to figure out a motive at this hour. This is a live look at the scene outside that church and school in southwest Minneapolis. The police chief earlier today calling this an act of cruelty and cowardice, and the mayor of Minneapolis saying he is so deeply saddened and sorry for what has happened.
There are families that have a deceased child. You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation. We are a Minneapolis family. But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance.
And this is another live look from the scene, still very much an active scene. A number of agencies, state, local, federal, all on the scene this afternoon following this deadly shooting. You heard the mayor there talking about how families and children should feel safe and be at peace in situations like this, and they should be able to go and not have to worry about their safety. Just a few moments ago, I spoke with Dave Benson, who's a security consultant, who talked about the importance of schools, churches, every place really needing security and a plan, and also reacting to this news of this shooting and what people need to know moving forward.
Yeah, it's horrific. Unfortunately, it's not unprecedented. I've been doing violence prevention work for a long time, and houses of worship are not immune for this type of targeted and intentional violence, and that's clearly what we had here today.
And that's sickening to hear about. It's heartbreaking to hear about, a place of worship and a school as well, places that you should be able to go to in peace. And according to the police chief, they said this shooter was outside shooting through the windows into this building. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a bit unorthodox, but what it does tell me is that some thought had gone into this. And clearly, he was looking for some cover, if you will, to commit the act. He didn't want to go right in. We have no evidence that he went right into the sanctuary. That's number one. Number two, um, the most vulnerable time in a house of worship, in a church, school, or whatever, are assemblies and mass and religious services. And so the big three areas, when I've always done ministry security over the years, that we look at is the ministry experience, the worship experience, and then the children's experience. And this sadly falls into one of those three categories. People are in one spot, maybe praying, maybe singing, maybe worshiping, and they're extremely vulnerable.
And what challenges are there when you're talking about a setting like this and having security or enough safety presence?
Yeah, so the key is to be welcoming, but alert. We used to talk about DLRs, not a very technical term, but don't look right. If it doesn't look right to you, if someone walks into your congregation or if someone is loitering outside, and the behavior is unusual, they need to be approached and challenged. That can be in a friendly manner. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a tactical manner, but we have to be able to know from the outside of the building, in many cases the parking lot, coming up into the front of the location, and certainly if they begin to try to get into the building, those are all opportunities for engagement. And then you make your determination whether you're going to do a tactical response to neutralize the threat or engage in another way.
The initial reports are that this shooter also had barricaded a couple of the doors to the outside of the building to try to prevent people from coming out at least one side of that church building. What are some things people should keep in mind as they go to whether it's school, whether it's church, whatever it might be? Obviously this is big news and things that the people may think about as they kind of go forward. What are some things we should keep in mind?
Well, first and foremost, regardless of the venue, whether it's a sporting event, indoors, outdoors, houses of worship, political rallies, whatever it might be, you need to have a plan with your family or your group. You're looking for exits. How many exits are there? Don't plan on leaving the same way you came in, because you may have a situation like we apparently had here, or at least some of the exits were barricaded, which obviously bespeaks to a heinous level of planning and targeting for this violent act to maximize the amount of carnage. Know your way in, know your way out. That's number one. Number two, have a response plan. If you hear anything or you see something that seems to be unusual, make a determination to get away from the threat. If you can do that. If you can't, you want to safely barricade yourself to provide some cover and concealment. And then that final option that no one wants to think about, but it's absolutely essential, is you might have to participate in neutralizing the threat. So you need to keep thinking about all those three things in a plan. The other thing is a reunification plan. I've heard some of the news reports and trying to come up with, where is my family? My family was separated. My child came to services today. I don't know if they're injured or worse. Where do I find them? Have a reunification plan well away from the potential target area. So these are some of the things that we want to think about.
We know in a statement from the Diocese of Orlando saying that they are urging their on-site law enforcement to just be increasingly vigilant just in case something were to happen here. Is that, do you think that's especially important in the aftermath of something like this, just being more vigilant and more aware?
I absolutely do, because there is a certain amount of human element out there that do this for the notoriety, if you will, and in some cases are actually emulating or copying other events. And in this case, maybe other houses of worship. I know there's some talk that there was a church shooting, or at least in the vicinity of a church shooting a couple of days before. All these things need to be taken into consideration. But the bottom line is, expect the unexpected. We want people to be mindful, but not fearful. Get out of harm's way if you can. but think about the what ifs. We want to live our lives. We want to be able to worship freely, but by the same token, we want to be able to assist ourselves in getting out of harm's way, because we have an expression, as good as the law enforcement response appeared to be, when seconds count, help is minutes away. So we have to do some things for ourselves as the public as well.
Here's another live look. We will continue to monitor the situation in Minneapolis. If news breaks, we will get you back there. We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live and giving you a live look at the White House. You can see the American flag has been lowered to half staff following the shooting in Minneapolis that we were just telling you about. President Trump releasing a statement about this just moments ago, and you can see the flag at the White House already being lowered to half staff. Well, it is time now for our Tampa Connection, and for that we go to Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, joining us live now from the Fox 13 newsroom. And Nancy, good afternoon to you. I know you've been following this an FBI raid in Tampa that seems to be connected to a number of others across the country.
Yes, that's right. The FBI raid happened just north of Tampa in a community called Avila, and it comes after a federal grand jury in Michigan revealed a 10-count indictment against two people who claim to be religious leaders with the Kingdom of God Global Church, which used to be Joshua Media Ministries International. Now, we're told that 56-year-old Michelle Brannon was arrested at a nearly $10 million home in Avila, which was owned by the church, while David Taylor, he was arrested in North Carolina. So SWAT and FBI agents also raided a hotel that was owned by the church in Houston this morning. And according to the indictment, Taylor calls himself Apostle and refers to Brannon as his executive director. Their organization ran call centers to solicit donations that would go to Kingdom of God Global Church. Now, these call centers, they were located in Florida, in Texas, as well as in Missouri. And the pair is accused of compelling their victims to work at the call centers and also to work as Taylor's armor bearers. Now, those armor bearers were basically his personal servants, according to this indictment. Now, these armor bearers, they would fulfill Taylor's demands around the clock, and allegedly they had every aspect of their lives controlled by Taylor and Brannon. We're told that these victims slept in those call centers or in what's called a ministry house, and they were not allowed to leave without permission. We're also told that Taylor would force them to take women from ministry houses, airports, as well as other locations and bring them to him, and then make sure that they took Plan B contraception. Now, Taylor and Brannon are also accused of forcing victims to work long hours in these call centers without pay or perform other services for Taylor. Now, Taylor allegedly set unattainable daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly monetary donation goals for these victims working in the call centers and required them to follow the orders he created without question. Now, if the victims disobeyed an order or did not reach his monetary goals, Taylor and Brannon are accused of punishing the victims with public humiliation, additional work, food and shelter restrictions, psychological abuse, forced repentance, sleep deprivation, physical assaults, and threats of divine judgment in the form of sickness, accidents, and eternal damnation. Now, the church received millions of dollars in donations each year through these call centers, and we are told that Taylor received about $50 million in donations since 2014. According to the indictment, Taylor and Brannon used a lot of this money to purchase luxury properties, luxury vehicles, and sporting equipment such as a boat, jet skis, and ATVs. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Brannon was arrested at that home in the Avila community this morning, and here's what one of the neighbors had to say.
And I heard there early on that the church bought part of it and he bought part of it, and because everyone's like, how could a pastor afford to live in a house like that? I mean, even some of the people who live there couldn't afford to live in that particular house in there. I can't even imagine. I mean, I hope it's not true, but if it is, you know, he deserves everything he's going to get.
And Brannon appeared in a Tampa courtroom today, and Taylor was set to appear in a North Carolina court. They both faced charges of forced labor, conspiracy to commit forced labor, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Each alleged crime carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison. It also comes with a payment, if you will, of up to $250,000, and another charge may cost them up to $500,000. Now, anybody who has any information about human trafficking, they're being asked to report it to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. That number, toll-free, is 1-888-373-7888, and that hotline operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Garrett?
Wow, quite a case there, and for it to be tied to a number of raids across the country, certainly interesting developments in that today.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting developments. And here in the newsroom, we've been going back through some of the YouTube videos that have been posted by Brannon as well as Taylor. And in one of them, it does promote an event that was supposed to take place in Orlando. And in this video, you see people who were in wheelchairs or people who couldn't walk, and they are basically being healed through this church, if you will. So this definitely was very far reaching. They were also promoting events over in other countries such as South Africa, promoting that if you attend these events, regardless of what you have, whether you can't walk or if you have cancer, that they would have the power to heal you.
Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us for our Tampa Connection.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live, and here is a live look right now at the Florida's Natural Visitor Center in Lake Wales in Polk County, where we expect to hear from Senator Ashley Moody and some other officials coming up in just about 10 minutes or so. Talking about some efforts to revitalize Florida's citrus industry. We will get you to that news conference when it begins. We also heard earlier from Congressman Randy Fine, who was in Flagler County earlier today, announcing nearly $9 million in federal funds to help with restoration at Flagler Beach. Specifically, this is some projects to improve beach quality and restore dunes in areas that were affected by Hurricane Milton last fall. And Congressman Fine also talked about working to speed up FEMA reimbursements for Milton damage. Here is Congressman Fine speaking earlier today in Bunnell.
But we're here because over the 5-week August recess, I've had the ability to make over 70 stops throughout the district. It's sort of, we feel like we're making a lot of figure eights. I was like, yeah, I was just there. My district is bigger than the state of Connecticut. So we've been all over the 6 counties over the last 5 weeks. This is probably our 75th stop that we've made. And sometimes I learn about problems when I'm making these visits. When I was in Flagler County, it was probably just 2 weeks ago, right? 2 weeks ago, I came to do a tour of the beaches. And the beaches are something I know a lot about. I live on the beach, so I understand the challenge of what it means for beach restoration of the dune. And I have the distinction of my family having lost 2 houses in hurricanes. My parents in 2004, me in 2016. And so I understand the importance of beaches. And we took a tour of the beaches. I was not dressed appropriately. I was wearing a suit. That was not the easiest thing. But we were talking as we went to the beach. I said, what do you need from me? Because I always try to get to the punchline. What do you need me to do? How can I help? And what I was told by Andy and the other folks from Flagler County is we have $9 million that's waiting, that's approved, that's in the budget, that we've already gotten for the beaches, but we can't get a signature out of Washington. But you don't want more money? No. It's already approved. You just are waiting on a signature. Yes. You've been waiting a long time? Yes. I'm like, well, that's something I ought to be able to go and fix. So as I drove away from the tour, I started making phone calls. And lo and behold, a few days later, all it took was those calls. It helps that I have friends in Washington now, but we got that signature on that letter, and that $9 million is delivered. And so we're here today to commemorate that because we need to make sure that our beaches are protected. But there's more to be done. The other things that I've learned, and I've learned this not only in Flagler County, but around my district, that people are waiting years to be reimbursed for FEMA. So we hear FEMA, FEMA, FEMA. The Democrats love to talk about FEMA. It doesn't matter how big FEMA is. If you've got to wait 5 years to get paid back for the expenses that you have when there's a hurricane, if you have to take out a loan from the bank and pay interest on it to cover your expenses, I'm not sure how much good it is. And so we're also working, and we've already gotten the federal government to take a relook at the Milton expenses that were incurred here a few years ago. The point is the federal government needs to serve the people of Florida. And it's one thing to talk about how big it is and how many employees, and those metrics are fine and good. But at the end of the day, it's not about how big the government is. It's not about how many employees it has. It's about, is it serving the needs of the people? I was an entrepreneur for 22 years. I learned that size does not necessarily indicate results. As a one-man band in all 3 of my companies, I upended big industries. I was really small, but I worked hard, and I cared about putting points on the board and delivering results. That's what we've done here with what we're celebrating here today in Flagler County, about getting this money approved to protect our beaches so, God forbid, another hurricane comes, we're prepared. But to send that message that it is my job and my team's job, and hopefully we've proven it over the last 5 weeks, to represent the people that are here, to advocate for the needs that they have, and to make sure that we're protecting our beaches and everything in our county. So I'm excited to come back. It took 2 weeks. I can't set that expectation. Every problem I'm not going to be able to solve in 2 weeks. But this was one that we were able to, and we're proud to do it. And we have to celebrate the wins because hopefully it sends the message of my level of commitment. When I hear a problem, I'm going to try to solve it. That is why I'm elected, to serve the people that I have the honor to serve.
Now that we do have the funding for the project, we already have a contractor on site that's doing a dune restoration project for us. So he'll just continue north so we can implement this project November 1st is what we're looking at. So that part of the coast is lower lying, And so just the small storm surge from Milton, which was 2 to 3 feet, was right at the top of the dune, and it did erode most of the dune in that area. So it is critical to repair that dune. So as soon as Milton was over, we did a post-storm survey. We were able to quantify the amount of sand that we lost during Milton. At that point, we worked with our consultant, Foth Engineering, that put together a damage report for us. We submitted it in, I believe, early, maybe January of the following year. So the Milton was in October. We submitted it in January. So at that point, it was under review with FEMA. I have a very good relationship with the beach team at FEMA. They were in constant communication with me, but at some point, I was not getting any more feedback. So that's when we called the congressman.
Yeah, I mean, look, things go into the great vortex of Washington, D.C. And I think one of the things we should think about is trying to get the people who work on these problems closer to the problems. I've only been in Washington for 146 days. I have not seen the beach yet. Maybe there is one somewhere, but there's no ocean. And so I think a lot of the times the bureaucrats are far away from the problems, and they don't have to deal with them themselves. And so, as I said, as I drove away, I got on the phone. I started making some calls. I have the ability. Fortunately, I have some powerful friends in Washington. That's why I'm in Congress. And they said, sure, if all you need is a signature and it's a good idea, we'll get it done. And we did. And part of the reason I was willing to make that call is Flagler County is approaching beaches the right way. There's multiple ways to protect our shoreline. But I can tell you, as someone who's lived on the beach for many, many years, the best way to protect the beach is with a dune with natural grasses growing. God had it right. He knew how to protect it. And it's crazy. You'll see beaches that the sand all gets pulled away by the storm up to the dune where the grasses are growing. It is the roots that hold the dune in place, that hold the sand in place and protect things. And so given that that is the approach that wanted to be taken here as opposed to other sorts of man-made systems that ultimately don't work, I was very, very excited to help because that is the solution to our beach problems. We have to return to natural dunes with natural growth on those dunes to hold the sand into place. The sand will always come and go, but it is the dune if properly built and properly protected. And part of the challenge is you can build the dune and you can plant the plants, but it takes a while for those roots to grow deep enough, and we have to cross our fingers and hope we have a couple of years with no storms in order to get those roots deep into place. But you do that, and again, the plants will hold the sand in place and they will protect the dune. My interest is this. When my kids were born, I made a decision that I wanted to take them to every national park. They are America's best idea. There are 63 of these in the United States, including 3 here in Florida, Everglades, Dry Tortugas, and Biscayne. But we've been to them all. I've taken them to all of them. We've been to the Grand Canyon. We've been to Glacier, all of these amazing places, Zion and Bryce Canyon. But when I ran for Congress, I started touring our Florida Springs. And as I toured Florida Springs, I said, these are as nice and extraordinary as any of these sites that I've seen elsewhere in the country. In fact, everyone knows about Yellowstone. Yellowstone was protected because it is the largest concentration of geysers, not in the West, not in the United States, but in the world. Well, Florida has the largest concentrations of natural springs, not in Florida, not in the United States, but in the world. And I said our Florida Springs are deserving of the same level of protection as we see at Yellowstone. And so we have some state parks, and I said, I believe that they rise to the level of national designation. Now, I don't have the answer on how to do that. There's a lot of federal land, there's a lot of state land in the area, including a national forest. But my bill that I announced yesterday would have the National Park Service, the Department of the Interior, figure out how to take some number of our Florida Springs and other already owned government land and turn that into something nationally designated. It might be a national park, it might be a national monument, it might be a national recreation area, it could be some combination of the three to do 2 things. Number one, to make sure that we're protecting these extraordinary places in the world. But second, and this is a big deal for the communities that I represent, to create a massive increase in the level of tourism that these sites visit. People travel the country to visit our national parks. Why? Because being a national park means you're the best America has to offer. And I believe that people on their way to Disney World or Universal, as they're driving down I-95 from the East Coast or I-75 from the Midwest, could see a sign that says Florida Springs National Park and get off and see some of these extraordinary natural wonders that are part of what makes Florida, Florida.
That was Congressman Randy Fine earlier today speaking in Flagler County. We're going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. Senator Ashley Moody just arriving at the podium at the Florida's Natural Visitors Center in Lake Wales, talking about efforts to revitalize Florida's citrus industry. Let's go ahead and listen in.
And Matt Joyner, appreciate you being here. They're going to help deliver the great news that we're going to be talking about today. I was just here in April lamenting that Florida's orange industry has always been the symbol of a great industry of a state, but especially our state. In fact, the orange is on every one of our license tags in Florida. It's what we're known for. And in the last 2 decades, I believe our production of oranges has gone down 92% due to occurrences from storms, but certainly citrus greening. We were estimating the amount of growers has decreased from thousands, approximately 9,000 to 10,000 in that same period of time to about 1,500. And those are estimates, but that shows you the impact of a decreasing production can have on a state, because that is such a large part of our economy. The Florida citrus industry has always been a driving part of the success of our economy. And so when this started happening in terms of the survival of this industry to our state, we had to look at how can we ensure that this decrease in growers doesn't keep happening, and what else might be burdening our growers aside from those things that we're struggling to deal with anyway, the natural occurrences of greening or storms. But a man-made disaster of overregulation can also occur. And so when I met with the growers here after becoming a senator, and the weeks following becoming a United States senator, one of the concerns I kept hearing about was, listen, we've been trying to keep our heads above water over the last 2 decades. And if we want to save this industry, we've got to make sure that those remaining growers can keep their heads above water and survive until we can get a handle on greening and some of these other things. And the way to do that is go back and figure out how to get rid of unnecessary regulations that might be costing them money when they don't need to be there, so that they can continue to survive and thrive, so we can solve this problem. And one of the things that government is the worst at is going back and examining laws and regulations after they've been implemented. You get new people in office continuously, right? We're always having elections, new people are coming in office, and immediately, and it comes from a good place, people want to say, all right, what kind of laws can I create to help people? So it comes from a good place, but oftentimes the best thing you can do to help people or ensure that your businesses can succeed and continue the success of your small businesses and your families as a result is by removing laws and regulations, or at the very least going back and making sure that the original intention of policy is being met by those regulations or laws and not in some way hurting good faith players. And that happens all the time in lawmaking. People come in from a good place and they want to go after a problem or go after a bad actor, and in doing so they nuke the landscape and take out the good faith players with them. So we got into a situation in Florida where we had a regulation on the books under the FDA that had a higher sugar content that needed to be, that was naturally occurring in Florida's oranges. So in order to survive, we were having to import foreign oranges for our orange juice, which makes absolutely no sense. The regulation has nothing to do with quality or nutrition value. It's just a regulation on the books that the growers and the orange juice makers are trying very hard to keep up with no reasoning behind it. So my legislation, after meeting with growers, that I proposed was to direct the FDA to lower that sugar standard. I mean, I don't know about you, but most people are trying to lower their sugar content anyway, which does nothing for quality or nutrition of orange juice, but everything to do with helping our growers survive and thrive here in the great state of Florida. So after incessantly and annoyingly bringing this up at every confirmation hearing that came in front of me as a U.S. Senator, and then following up with the Trump administration, not only Secretary Rollins or Secretary Kennedy, but President Trump himself, who saw the nonsense in, because of an unnecessary regulation, having to import foreign oranges into our country to meet some regulation, immediately said, we are going to fix this, and we're going to fix this now, and directed the administration to proceed. And the FDA has now, in such a short amount of time, I can't believe I was just here a little more than 2 months ago, has directed that standard and that regulation to be changed, to modernize that standard so that we are no longer reliant on importing foreign oranges, and we can actually support and allow our domestic orange growers to thrive. So today is an announcement that FDA has changed that regulation, rolled out a proposed new rule, and is now seeking notice and comment. I hope our growers are going to get in there and give a lot of comments on why this is good, not just for Florida's orange industry, which provides 20% of our nation's oranges, but for our country, because we are reorienting how we look at what government should be. Everything we do should be through the lens of how is this affecting the strength of our nation, the protection of our people, the protection of their rights, and how is this helping our industries thrive? And certainly at the very least, how are we as government not getting in the way? And so I am so excited, as your most junior senator, one of the most junior senators in the United States Senate, to announce today that government is working for you. I want to thank President Trump, the administration, everyone involved in this that really pushed forward, did not accuse me of being too annoying about it. And today we're proud to announce that we've had an announcement of a proposed new rule from the FDA, which will go a long way to helping protect Florida's growers and our orange industry. So thank you for being here with us today to help celebrate and announce this new rule. We really appreciate it. I'm going to bring up Chris.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Senator Moody. It is my pleasure to welcome you back to Florida's Natural Growers today. I'd also like to welcome all of your staff, our industry leaders, grower members of our cooperative, and members of the Florida's Natural team, along with the media. Today's discussion reflects a shared commitment to Florida's citrus industry as we work together to address challenges like citrus greening and to modernize standards to reflect today's agricultural realities. Florida's Natural Growers is a farmer-owned cooperative with more than 90 years of citrus growing history. We have always been and remain dedicated to supporting Florida farmers, to delivering high-quality orange and grapefruit juice, and to ensuring that our state's citrus heritage thrives for generations to come. So on behalf of Florida's Natural Growers, we're honored to host this event. And now I'd like to invite Christian Spinoza, a fifth-generation Florida citrus grower, to the podium.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for having us today. Like Chris said, my name is Christian Spinoza. I'm a fifth-generation citrus producer, and I'm honored to be here to represent Florida Farm Bureau with Senator Moody. Senator Moody mentioned that we've been dealing with this for 20 decades. We've seen a decline. I've only been a producer for a little less than 2 decades, so this is all I've known. And I can say without a doubt that the work you've done, the work that's being done, will be another tool in the toolbox for us as growers to use. I look forward to being able to do that. I just want to say thank you, Senator, for your work on doing this. Thank you for, you mentioned it. You call it being annoying, but I call it, you fighting for us and working hard to make sure that we have that representation, that we can get these kind of tools put in the industry for us. And the relationship that you've shown, not just towards the citrus growers, but to the ag industry in whole. We're very much appreciative of the open door policy you've had with your office, and we look forward to working with you the many years of your service. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Joyner, and I'm the CEO and Executive Vice President of Florida Citrus Mutual. Florida Citrus Mutual is the statewide trade organization that represents the well-being of the Florida citrus industry. And part of our task is talking with policymakers and looking for things that we can do to improve the lives and productivity and profitability of the Florida citrus grower. And so we met with Senator Moody and explained this arbitrary regulation that has been in place since the 60s and the impact that it was having on an industry that was already struggling after 2 decades of greening, multiple hurricanes. And she said, this is ridiculous. And she committed to championing this bill. And she introduced, I think maybe as one of your first bills, the Defending Domestic Orange Juice Act. And here we are 4 short months later, celebrating a change in rule that was being advocated for by this bill and by the senator. And so, Senator, we can't thank you enough for standing shoulder to shoulder with the Florida citrus industry in what has been some of the most challenging times for this industry. We're excited about the things we're seeing as a result of support from our state and federal partners. We're excited about the things that we're seeing from research to combat citrus greening. But I can tell you that we cannot survive as an industry with arbitrary regulations getting in our way. And so Senator Moody, the Trump administration, our whole congressional delegation stood up and said, enough, this is ridiculous. And we have seen this rule be proposed, and we're excited to see it implemented so that Florida producers can supply these processing facilities with fresh Florida orange juice and fresh Florida oranges to make the Florida orange juice that not only our state and our country, but our world has come to know us for. And so thank you again for all that you've done for the Florida citrus grower, for the Florida ag industry, and we look forward to continuing to work with you for many years to come on all the challenges that we will face together, and we know that as an advocate, we will overcome them. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's not often that you get to show up in a room of people and announce the laws that you're getting rid of, and people are so excited. But this is a fun day for me. I like to cut. We should just keep cutting red tape, and I think this country would be a lot better off. Not just this industry, but so many others. The first bill that I had passed off the Senate floor, it was on my first full 100th day in office, was rolling back an unnecessary regulation. And I was so proud to stand with my son as President Trump signed that bill the Friday before Mother's Day, so he could see us in action on behalf of Florida and behalf of Floridians and our great stakeholders. So thank you again for being here today. It's an honor for me to join you. I am from the Central Florida area, born and raised in Plant City, Florida. So you are a big part of my heart and my world, and I will always fight fiercely for Florida's agriculture community. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. Or I might throw one of these guys up here to take your question.
I do have a question for the producers, but in terms of the FDA, so they're going to be taking comments from growers, and then what's the process going to look like after that?
I can answer. Are you guys okay? So the way administrative regulations or proposed regulations work is there's a proposed rule and then a notice and comment period, and then they take that into consideration and roll out that final rule. So they're taking notice and they're taking comments now, which is one of the reasons we're doing this for all of our growers that are in support of this, explaining why it's so important and why they would like to see this change, and that should go on until November, and then there'll be a final rule issued after that.
And for the producers, if you can just expand on how this is going to impact you, how this change will impact you financially, and what you can focus on now that this is going to be behind you, and maybe other challenges that you can focus on going forward.
I'll do this again, and I'll let Matt have the rest. I mean, for me as a citrus producer, this will ideally allow us to use more of our product, to be able to sell our product, to use it into the juice, what our state is known for, and allow me to focus on the issues that we're seeing every day, whether it's citrus greening, nutritionally. I mean, what we see every day in our grows that I can focus on and not have to worry about what's going on in D.C. is always going to be a lifesaver for me and allow me to spend more time where it needs to be spent. Does that answer your question?
And I think the most important thing is this adjustment in sugar standards. It modernizes that regulation in the sense that it now more accurately reflects the sugar content in Florida-grown oranges, meaning we don't have to import foreign oranges to make orange juice anymore. We can now sell Florida product, and that's going to help our Florida growers. So important. It's estimated that this will save our Florida growers approximately $50 million, I believe. And just think about that. I always go back to this in government. $50 million in expenses was being spent by an industry that was struggling to keep their head above water with greening and storms, et cetera, for a regulation that made no difference in nutrition or quality of orange juice and forced us to buy foreign oranges. So if you look at what this administration has done, they've come in with this fresh perspective of, look, we need to go back and look at all of our policies on how we're approaching not only our laws, but the regulations that agencies may have put in place decades ago, like this one. And while at the time, and I'm not just referring to this regulation, many others, there's generally a purpose, a point, generally, let's say decades ago, there might have been even a good intention, but not going back and reevaluating and adjusting standards or even eliminating regulations as needed as we proceed as a state and as a country, that's just malpractice. We should always be doing that. Otherwise, you could be hindering and limiting the successes of your own people and your own American businesses. And so I just want to commend, not just on this issue, there have been so many issues where the administration has been willing to go back, relook at policies that were put in place some time ago and make sure that they are still working in the interests of Americans.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Senator Ashley Moody wrapping up a news conference at the Florida's Natural Visitor Center in Lake Wales. That's in Polk County.
Senator, thank you so much.
Let's go ahead and listen into this last question here.
Championing removing regulations that are hindering the citrus industry. Now, and people that want to be farmers. And this is not a federal thing, this is more of a state thing, but I'm sure you still have some friends here in the state. They recently passed a law, I believe it was Senate Bill 180, which took away the ability for the counties to do their own zoning. And so if farmers want to stay doing a citrus industry, but their next door neighbor decides to go with putting in a big housing development, then the county has no control over that. And so what we're seeing here in Polk County is just citrus grove after citrus grove raised to put in housing. So
and that is one of the things I think that we, in proposing this legislation and talking about this particular regulation, we're trying to address, because so many of you could come down this area just 10 years ago, and there were grove after grove after grove after grove, and economic factors start playing into, can you sustain and make a living at the profession that you love and your family has done for generations and really built the state. And so this is just a very small step in analyzing what we can do in terms of, on a federal scale, in terms of policy, to try and address those economic variables. But certainly the state will have to look at that as well. Well, thank you so much. Good to be with you.
And now Ashley Moody wrapping up that news conference at the Florida's Natural Visitors Center in Lake Wales, where she talked about a number of things, including the Defending Domestic Orange Juice Production Act, which is now being considered to be implemented through an FDA proposed rule. So what is at the heart of that, and we have covered some of her news conferences on this issue before, is the sugar content and what is currently allowed under current FDA regulations. And they're trying to get a change to kind of better reflect what the natural levels of sugar are in domestic oranges, so oranges like that are grown right here in Florida. And so they hope that this will encourage domestic production. It will allow for fewer imported oranges to be needed and really encourage the production and help with our local growers here in Florida. You heard the senator talk about how 20% of the nation's oranges come from right here in Florida, but the industry has seen a lot of troubles, issues from hurricanes and greening as well, and so the hope is that some of these new actions and new rules and regulations, cutting some of those red tape and modernizing some of the restrictions will help with encouraging domestic production. Well, we are just about out of time here on Florida Live, but I do want to let you know about a couple of other things coming up this afternoon. One of them from Minnesota here, and I can give you a live look from outside the scene of Annunciation Catholic School, where we know 2 children were killed, 17 people injured in this shooting while they were celebrating Mass this morning around 8:30 a.m. Central Time, so about 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We do expect an update around 3:30 from officials. That is expected at this staging site where we heard the update earlier from the local police chief and from the Minneapolis mayor. The news coming this afternoon is we have learned some more information about the suspected shooter, man in his early 20s, Robin Westman, who, according to investigators, shot through the windows with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol before shooting and killing himself. We have seen that police are trying to determine a motive, and some details coming out of that through reporting as well. So at 3:30, we do expect that update. If you're watching us here on Fox Local Orlando, we will bring that to you live coming up in just a little bit. We are also standing by around that same time, 3:30. Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to hold a news conference in Orlando alongside the CFO, Blaise Ngolia. We do know that the state has conducted an audit, or is in the middle of an audit, of both Orange County and the city of Orlando, and so it's unclear if this has to do with that or what exactly may be the subject of this conversation, or this news conference rather, that is scheduled for just a little bit. But we should note that the CFO Blaise Ngolea did tweet that you don't want to miss this, talking about this announcement from the governor. So that is also coming up this afternoon around 3:30, being held at the Zora Neale Hurston State Office Building in Orlando. So we do expect to bring that to you live as well. So a couple of updates coming in that 3 o'clock hour, and then 4 o'clock we have another live hour of Fox 35 News Plus that we will keep you up to date on everything happening throughout the day. So as we wrap up Florida Live here, I'm going to give you this live look at the flag at the White House at half staff this afternoon following the shooting and the tragedy in Minnesota. So thanks for watching here on Florida Live. Have a great afternoon, and we'll have updates coming up in just a little bit.